Hello there. Unless you have been living under a rock in the world of health and fitness, chances are you've seen the controversial This Is Healthy campaign by Cosmopolitan magazine. If you haven't, I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So most of the controversy revolves around these two women who are a little on the heavier side, pictured on the cover of the magazine with a title laid over that says, "This is healthy." And the pushback is coming from people in health, fitness, and otherwise who say, this is not healthy. And putting women who are obese on the cover of a magazine, making the statement, "This is healthy," is a problem. Some people going as far as to say, now in the time of COVID-19, when obesity, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, all these things have proven to be highly consequential with mortality for people who contract the disease, this is a very dangerous and inappropriate message to send. Now, I've thought about this a lot. I wrote a blog post that I haven't published, that I don't know that I will. I recorded a podcast about it with my girl Rita, which will probably come out in a couple of weeks. I've taken the things that I've written, my thoughts, and sent them to people, clients of mine, friends of mine who either have quite a bit of weight to lose or have come from there and lost the weight and said, what do you think about these thoughts? And more importantly, is me putting this out there going to help anybody? Or am I just going to be another person rattling the cage and making noise? Because I'm not really interested in doing that. So I've thought about this long and hard, and I think the best thing that I can do is try to find the middle ground here and explain why this has become such a polarizing topic. Because both sides of the argument have very good points, and I think it's the inability to understand what the other side is saying for very clear and specific reasons. So there's side A that says obesity is not healthy, therefore this is not correct, right? This is not healthy. So how can you take someone who is obese when we know all of the issues, the health issues that arise from obesity, and put someone like that on the cover of a magazine and say that this is healthy? It sends a poor message. And then the other side, who's supporting that, I clearly can't speak for that part of the world, but I think the idea is activity is healthy, right? If these women are active, that is healthy. Mental wellness is healthy. Happiness is healthy, and that is what these women have. Just because they weigh this much does not mean they don't have all of those other expressions of health. Now, side A is correct, and side B is correct. So side A is correct in that your chances of becoming a diabetic go up 1,200% if you're obese. Coronary artery disease and death goes up significantly. Your chances of getting Alzheimer's goes up significantly. Now, a lot of people in the medical community are referring to diseases like Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes because they see it as an insulin resistance and blood sugar management issue. Musculoskeletal disorders like getting knee replacements, hip replacements goes up. The population of human beings who have sleep apnea, 75% of those who have sleep apnea are obese. So clearly, that shouldn't be a controversial thing to say. If you are obese, there are going to be health consequences that come with that. So side A is correct. But side B is also correct in that self-acceptance is a powerful form of mental health. And we even know that moderate improvements in weight loss, so a person regardless of their weight, if they can lose 5 to 10% of their weight, even if that means going from 300 pounds to 270 pounds or 280 pounds, there's going to be significant and powerful health effects just from losing that weight. So while the person might still be obese, just coming down in weight from where they were is going to have powerful health effects, even though they're still in the same weight category. So side B is correct as well in a lot of ways. Now, The issue with this conversation is the issue with most polarizing conversations, and that is that one side is looking at the topic from a purely rational perspective, and the other side is considering a purely emotional perspective. And neither of those angles makes a person wrong, because reality is perceptual. And chances are that the person on the rational side is not experiencing the suffering that comes with the thing that we're talking about. So chances are, and this isn't, there are of course exceptions to this. There are obese people who agree with the purely rational side of obesity is a health problem, therefore this is a problem. And then there's fit people who are on the other side saying, yeah, maybe I'm very fit, but I also see these women as healthy. So there's exceptions, but I'm willing to bet the vast majority of people on the side of obesity is unhealthy are not suffering from everything that comes along with obesity, not just the direct health effects, but the psychological effects that come from being a heavy person for most of your life and feeling wrong about it and being made to feel wrong about it. And then chances are, if you're taking the side of this is healthy, these women are active, they're happy, they're accepting of themselves, this is healthy, chances are most of those people know what it's like to suffer from that thing, right? So when you're looking at a topic like this, and the structure of the perspective and the structure of the argument is not the same. We have a rational side or a more rational side and then a more emotional side, which means the rational side is less experiential with the problem and the emotional side is more experiential with the problem. The perspectives are too skewed to really find any middle ground, and therefore this just turns into a fight. So my take on this is, yes, obesity is unhealthy, plain and simple, right? There's no denying the health issues that come from being obese, but obesity is not wrong. It should not diminish a person's value. It should not make someone feel like they're less of a worthy human being. And the reality is that it does. You know, that's societal, that's cultural. If you're someone who is of a certain weight, you've probably, and if you've been that way for most of your life, chances are you faced a lot of challenges, to put it lightly, that you shouldn't have to as a human, and you have. So if I could just say what I think and try to take bits of this from both sides, that's what it would be. Obesity is unhealthy, but it shouldn't change the way that you feel about yourself. But it does, and that's really where the conflict is here. And you know, while you could argue that a campaign like this, just going back and looking at it and putting these women on the cover, you could argue that this removes the stigma of obesity, or at least attempts to move in the direction of removing the stigma from obesity. Like if you're overweight, the stigma being, if you're overweight, you don't care about yourself. If you're overweight, you don't have any self-control. If you're overweight, I guess it's all different versions of the same thing. Like if you're overweight, you're lazy. This is how a lot of people see obese individuals. Because if you're not obese and you don't understand the suffering that drives a person to be obese, like there are genetic factors. Not everyone is starting at the same point, right? Not everyone has the same opportunity to take care of their health. That can be genetic issues, that can be socioeconomic issues. There's so many complex factors that play into a person being overweight, but the vast majority of overweight individuals are overweight because they turned to food to relieve some sort of suffering. And if you think that is incorrect, just look at how the ACEs study began with Vincent Felitti and his studies. That was an obesity study where they took a group of very overweight individuals, put them in a completely controlled environment. In the controlled environment, every single person in that study lost very significant amounts of weight. But as soon as they went back out into the real world, they gained all that weight back. And Vincent Feliti's question was, well, why is this? How come when they were in this environment, they were able to lose all of that weight and keep it off while they were here, but as soon as they went back out into the world, they gained all that weight back? And this is when he learned that the vast majority of those who struggled to keep weight off and put it back on immediately were also suffering from things like child abuse, sexual abuse, all these sorts of things that turned into the ACEs study, which is now used as a gold standard of assessing someone's chance of falling into addictive or other destructive behaviors. So that also shouldn't be a controversial thing to say. There are certainly genetic factors that play a role in someone's ability or inability to lose weight. There's societal factors, there's socioeconomic factors. Who raised you in the environment you were raised in? All these things play a part, and this is what makes it very, very complex. But what I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, there is a strong element of turning to food to eliminate suffering. So unless you're the type of person who has faced and lived with the sort of suffering that causes you to turn to food, you might look at someone like that and just think, this person's lazy. This person just doesn't care about themselves. If they did, they would just stop eating and exercise more and lose weight, which is, that's like looking at the drug addict on the street or the homeless person and just say, this person's lazy. Clean yourself up. Go get an education and get a job. Like, that is a completely ignorant perspective on how someone gets to the place that they're at. And there's a lack of compassion when you have no experience with what the person has gone through. So while you could argue that a campaign like that removes the stigma attached to obesity, and I hope that it does, I think there might be better ways to do that. And my only real concern, and this might be a valid concern or not, I mean, this is really just my opinion, but my only concern would be that if this becomes the societal norm of obesity is healthy, we're going to leave a lot of people complacent in their health when it could be changed, right? Because you do need some amount of motivation and some amount of pain in order to move towards a solution. And maybe that won't be today, maybe that won't be tomorrow, or maybe even this year for many individuals, because obesity is complex. But the pivotal moment that leads to someone making very significant long-term life change, they're few and they're very fleeting. And those opportunities may be missed if the level of comfort with a person's physical state gets too high and gets too normalized. And I guess that would be my concern, because much like most smokers who successfully quit smoking, they have hundreds of attempts before they kick the habit, right? Most smokers try 100 times and fail 100 times, and then just timing and what they're exposed to and where they're at in their life, the 101st time that they quit, it sticks for some reason. Again, a variety of factors might lead to that, but it takes so many attempts for someone to make this sort of difficult life change because it's so complex. And if we swing too far into normalizing obesity, is that going to make a lot of people complacent who maybe otherwise would sooner or eventually make significant changes when the time was right to take control of their health? And again, that's not saying that there aren't a million ways to express your health. All I'm saying is that obesity is clearly a health problem. And if it's a problem that you can solve, then you should have the opportunity to solve it. Now, some people just aren't there because weight loss and combating obesity is complex. And for many people, it's too daunting an undertaking, especially when you've tried and failed so many times. You feel defeated. You feel like a failure. You're always self-sabotaging. You have all these negative thoughts and feelings and a low self-image because of it. Then you don't want to keep banging your head against the wall and having to keep looking at yourself in the mirror in that context, because it can be a very negative ongoing experience for people. So for these people, it's great to have role models to help them manage their psychology. So if you're someone who's just like ground down and you've tried and failed so many times and it's just never really worked out for you, and weight loss has never stuck, and like this is just where you're at and you might be there for a long time, then it's great to be able to feel good about yourself regardless of your weight, your shape, or any other superficial measurement. And to have role models like the women on the cover of the magazines in these campaigns to say, like, it doesn't matter what your weight is. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks of your physical appearance. You're a person of value. You have something to offer. You are attractive. You are all these things that you think you're not, you are, if you can just decide that you are. That can be a very powerful message for those people. And that is the benefit of that, I think, of putting something like this out there. But again, my only concern is that something like this might lead people to be complacent if it just turns into a normalization of obesity. Because I don't know that that's a positive thing, or maybe I should draw a line in the sand and say, I don't think that's a positive thing. Because to say obesity is healthy, and I know that's not, I know there's more nuance to the message than that. But when you think about this picture and this title, and you know that Cosmopolitan was looking for controversy on this. You know that they knew exactly what they were doing in drawing people into this campaign. You're crazy if you think they didn't know exactly what they were doing. But the message that obesity is healthy is just factually incorrect. But again, that's a purely rational perspective on it, where the emotional perspective is important, and it's important to a lot of people. And I don't say emotional in a dismissive way that most people do. But I would think if you put those pictures on the cover with a title like "Health is about more than your body," that is probably something that would be more appropriate. Or "Happy at all sizes," right? Or something along those lines. That would more accurately reflect what I think the women who are the subject of the pictures were trying to say. And it would leave less room for this arguing and this polarization, and like it turns into a very negative thing. And I blame the magazine for that. I don't blame the women who are saying, like, if you look like me, you can be happy, you can be in control, you can have all of these great things in your life. Obesity is not a barrier to a great life. Like, that should be the message. And the magazine did not send the message that way. And they left the door open to this type of thing. And they knew what they were doing. Like, Cosmopolitan knew that if they put something on there that lended itself to more accuracy of what the women are actually trying to say within the campaign, that it wouldn't get as many clicks, it wouldn't get as many reads. Everyone's looking at this now, and they knew precisely what they were doing. So I don't think there's much more for me to say on that, and I hope it makes sense, and I hope it's clear, because like, I own a big gym. I've worked with overweight and obese individuals for the last decade. Some of the people who are closer to me than anyone else in my life are obese individuals. So I certainly don't want to make anyone feel badly about their weight, and I hope that's not what I'm doing. But I just wanted to paint the picture of this is how these things get out of control, because side A looks like this, side B looks like this. There's no understanding going one way or the other, and each side gets so deeply ingrained in their argument that they're not even open to hearing what the other side has to say. And neither side is wrong, and neither side is purely right. And I think the world would be a better place if everyone looked at the middle ground and focused on the parts of the argument that everyone can understand and agree on, and maybe everyone collectively can reframe what this thing is, and don't let magazines like Cosmopolitan create and direct and guide the narrative.